No more smoke and mirrors, just honest, transparent service.
Upgrade to the latest Fisher & Paykel designer black appliances, exclusive to Brighton. Black's the new black at brightonhomes.net.au.
Essendon, Havel and Great Wall. Open again after stage 4.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
G'day everybody, welcome to the show. It is Drive here, Monday afternoon, the 5th day of October 2020. Hopefully you, like everybody else, was consumed by what football can be, because that's what we saw on the weekend. Robert Murphy, an example of the game. They're all subtly different from one another, some not so subtly different than others, but they all had their own little personality starting back last Thursday night. Yeah, but don't you reckon, as I say, g'day, we got 4 just classic illustrations for the here and now, even in the constraints of what footy is in 2020.
I've got tired legs, Andy. I've got sore, tight calf muscles because I watched all of the games of footy pacing the lounge room.
It was a bit like that, wasn't it? It was.
Saturday, I felt like I'd done a marathon. I was up the Dogs game had me up and down and sideways, and I was pacing around. After that was done, and I was a bit flat for obvious reasons, and then I put the other game on. All of a sudden, back up I was, cutting laps around the lounge room again. Must have done about 15 Ks.
I didn't want anything else on Sunday. You know, normally when there's a Sunday, you want a Sunday. I didn't want a game on Sunday.
I needed an ice bath Sunday. I was cooked.
1300 736 736. That's what we do on Mondays now. You've heard all of the talk and all of the reviews, and you'll watch a few more of them tonight, where all of the experts throw their opinions at you. But we want to hear from you. That's what we do on a Monday on this show, 1300 736 736. In amongst all the other things we're going to do today, I want to do with you, and I know Bob's got his own stuff as well, but what's next? What's next in the immediate aftermath for those who won and those who lost, those who are still in it and those who are out? If you've got it's easy to do a deep dive, particularly if you're barrack for a club and you can do the multi-layers. You go, this. But I reckon sometimes when you dive too deep, you overlook the obvious. And the obvious is there right in front of you sometimes after a week like this. And if you've got one obvious thing that's in front of these teams, the ones that are out or the ones that are still in, that needs to be rectified immediately, I'd love to hear from you. 1300 736 736. Big show. Rob Harding's going to join us. He'll cast his forensic eye over the bits and pieces that caught his attention on the weekend. Craig Lambert's going to join us to give his sense of footy. It's his 52nd birthday today. We love celebrating a birthday. Still very committed to the game. Lambert, he'll give us his views on all of that. And I don't know how many people have been across what happened in the EPL overnight, our time, and into the wee small hours of the morning, but she has been a rollicking day for Manchester United.
No worries about scoring in the EPL. No congestion concerns over there. No
Manchester United and Liverpool overnight have conceded 13 goals.
Well, I put it to you a while ago because the EPL season came around so quickly. Liverpool won it.
Yep.
They'd been celebrating for weeks. Half of them were still in the pub, Andy.
7-2. Yeah.
7-2.
No, it's hard to believe. It's actually hard. It's actually hard to believe.
Hangover. Belly full.
They've started the campaign okay, but we need some explanation as to what's taking place. Andy Harper's going to join us. Excuse me, we've got 2 undefeated teams. We're 4. Well, some clubs have only played 3. 4 by and large teams have played 4 games this year. There's only 2 teams that remain undefeated in the English, which is quite unusual for the EPL. And those 2, this early in the season, and those 2 undefeated teams are Everton and Aston Villa. Now, you could have had any odds that they'd be the last 2 undefeated teams standing in the English Premier League, given the powerhouse financial nature of a few of them. So we'll talk to Harps about all of that and a whole lot of other stuff when he joins us. 1300 736 736. Best caller today. Great to have the Bogs Pillar Work Boots crew back on board. These are the best work boots you've ever had, if you've had them, or the best work boots you haven't had if you haven't had them yet.
Can confirm. Best.
100% waterproof, which was handy if you were out in the garden late into the evening last night. From bogsfootwear.com.au. We've got a pair of those to give away to the best caller throughout the day. Right, where do you want to start? Have you got the dust settles and you start wiping it off to get back to your notebook for a Monday afternoon? Where are you?
There's lots of things. We'll get into the little bits and pieces of the actual footy because there was so many little mini parts of the weekend that were great. But I want to ask you a question, Andy. I think it was James Brayshaw, I think, on the telecast, but maybe before the Brisbane-Richmond game, and he said, and this is a thought that I think most of us share, that in finals, umpires let the game go. They put the whistle away, was the way he put it, and the game is better for it. So, is that true? That's the first thing. Do you think that's actually fact, or is that just a feeling we have? But if it is, why don't we do it more often? Now, there's a couple of things to consider here. Mm-hmm. So we've got the best teams.
Correct.
So there's a start. So there's better players, better teams. Mm-hmm. There's better umpires. The best umpires get picked for finals.
That helps.
And it's often the way we say the grand final is the best umpired game. Well, there's probably no accident to that they pick the best umpires on that year. But if the game is better when we put the whistle away, why don't we do it more often? And is this... I'd love to hear from an umpire, and maybe tomorrow when we get Cambo on, because he can give us an insight into that world. But it's a view we all share. When it comes to the finals, less free kicks are paid.
Well,
and the game's better for it. But is that...
The numbers stack up to support it. I mean, they're down by an average of 5 across the 4 finals. So 32 free kicks per game was the average through the home and away season.
Right. An
average of 27 free kicks was paid across the 4 finals. So we're down. Somebody else can do the percentages. It sounds like about 15% fewer free kicks.
But players are going harder. They play
Correct.
more recklessly in finals. So, and there's less free kicks.
I haven't got it. It's a great question, and it's a question you posed at the top of the show. So I haven't had a chance to sit down and construct a thought in response.
Is that a view you'd shared though?
Yeah, I think we do.
In the general sense that we get to finals and it'll just be sort of let go a little bit.
I think we do, and yet I don't think the finals were under umpired. As I'm reflecting back in my sort of getting a hard drive to kick back into gear, I don't remember the games being under umpired. I don't think it was like just complete, just ad hoc, let it go, like a Wild West. I think there was still umpires.
Control.
Yeah, I don't think it was lawless. So,
dare we say it? It was well umpired, Andy.
I thought it was.
Dare we give some credit to the umpires?
Well, I dare do it. I dare do that.
All of us, we don't mind sinking the boot in, do we?
No. I dare do it on Friday night via Twitter. And all I said was, this happened, this happened.
You were on the Pinot too.
No. Well, that's true. But there was no spelling mistakes, and the syntax was strong. In my tweet, I put something like, balls getting thrown. So it was the Richmond game when they started throwing the ball up in the middle of the ground, because over the weekend we had some serious issues bouncing the footy on a couple of places. So a couple of things were happening in the game that I thought added to the game being a better flow. And I said the game was sensibly umpired. I didn't say it was brilliantly umpired. I said judicious umpiring.
Oh,
well, my goodness gracious me. Did I cop the rounds of the kitchen? You're kidding. You're watching another game, you flog. And then what you do is you go into the profiles of the people who are responding to you, and by and large, they support the team that's getting beaten. So they do have an issue with that from that perspective. But I thought the umpiring was okay on the weekend. I didn't have.
So okay, that's your highest mark for umpiring, is it?
But I don't even want to talk about the umpiring. I'd like the umpiring to be a complete and utter afterthought.
Don't the umpires deserve a little bit better than that, Andy?
I thought
the way we pace them when they get it wrong, particularly on this station, we give them a really hard time. But if we think they did a good job, surely they deserve better than okay.
Well, no, I think they did a good job then, if that's what you want. If you're not going to let me off the hook until I say, okay, there you go.
Well, that's a bit better. Good.
Well, I thought you might want to
umpires, if you're listening, you did a good job, not just okay.
Well, I've said okay to good, when last we did the categories, you were really poo-pooing okay and good. You wanted something far more colourful than that. So you've come over, which I like. Well done to you. Give me a word. What do you reckon they were? Before you get to a couple of calls, what did you think the...
I thought across the board for how the games felt, so you can drill down into individual moments, which people will, of course. I thought they were very good.
Yeah, good. Okay, good to
I thought
very
the
good.
spirit of the game was special. Great contests.
Just a quick, before we get to some calls, just a quick word on your doggies.
Yeah, disappointed, frustrated. I think they've got enough talent to beat the Saints. I thought they should have beaten the Saints. The Saints they were very good. They were really good.
They hung on, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean, the Dogs came with a flurry at the end. But like I've said to you, the harsh judgment on the Dogs, in my eyes, is next year. I don't think that's
so
quite...
here's my one-line takeaway from the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Need height in defence.
Yeah.
Get a tall bloke down there somehow, somewhere. They need to get a tall bloke in their back line.
Well, they've only got one key defender.
Keith. That's right.
Yeah.
Alex
he's the only,
that's it.
Yeah. Zane Cordy is one of the most underrated players in the league, but he is a third.
Yeah. Correct.
He's a third defender. He's not
and
a
the boy
key
Gardner.
defender.
The boy Gardner is learning
Not
the cape
quite
at this
there
level.
yet.
No,
he's not quite there yet. Yeah.
So if you want to be a team that's going to win finals, you need to get someone down there.
Looking forward to chatting with Rob Harding a little bit later. So with the Bulldogs, and I'll ask you this, Andy. So Tim English needs some support in the ruck.
Yep.
That's a view shared by a lot. And they need another key back. So, would you go, if, say these players were available, well, Braden Pruce is. Would you go Pruce or a Tom McDonald? So someone who could hybrid. So a hybrid who could go ruck and back,
Easy.
or
Done.
would you just go
Done.
McDonald?
For what you need, Tom McDonald. Yep. Tom McDonald, let's remember the Tom McDonald career arc. Tom McDonald was playing very, very good footy as a centre half-back, full-back, whichever, what do you want to call it?
Yeah.
Key defender, right? And then he goes down the other end through necessity, kicks 50 goals in a season, and the thinking about Tom McDonald, who he is and what he is as a player changes.
Yeah.
Tom, just send him back. And put him in a new club, stick him. Watch what he was doing in 2017 and stick him back there and make him do that again. He could, and then you might get, who knows, you might get another 2 or 3 years like you had out of Tom McDonald. People going, Melbourne supporters will be shaking their head going, hang on, how do we stuff this one up as badly as we did? So it's...
Yeah, it was a disappointing finish for the Dogs. Disappointing finish.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talent there. A lot of talent.
Yeah.
More than, a first week out of the finals. But the Saints, they were bloody good.
1-3, they got some issues now, haven't they? And we'll get some thoughts from St Kilda supporters.
Shocking. The Paddy Ryder, that was...
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
That was hard to watch, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
How
And
good
we'll talk
a player
about...
was he the other night?
Oh, mate, their big blokes were...
Yeah.
They were the difference in the end, weren't
Yeah, they were.
Andy's on the road, 16 past 3. Give us your one line, Andy, from a team, just your initial thought, good, bad, winner, loser. What are you thinking? What are you taking away from one of the teams on the weekend?
Well, Andy, 20 minutes into the first quarter when Trent Cotchin kicked the goal 45 metres on the left, I had quite a few one-liners for you. But Brisbane ended up winning, so that was okay.
Thank you very much.
Brisbane, one line for Brisbane.
Yep.
Effort.
Yeah, they were. Their effort levels were very strong. They were very good.
It's more than that, though, wasn't it?
I think they're better than that.
Do it in one word.
Yeah, I think they're better than that.
It was that's a significant step to get over Richmond. Same place as last year. They've been the little brother to Richmond, and it was like watching the little brother just sit the big brother on his backside.
And within
a bit of a backyard Donnybrook, and the whole dynamic shifts.
Yep.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm not the little kid anymore.
Yep.
I can go all the way now. There's nothing stopping us now. Brisbane should be the premiership favourite now.
not Port Adelaide, given the fact that it's going to be the Gabba?
Yep.
Okay. The thing that really impressed me, and this is going forward for Brisbane, I reckon, probably their two most important players outside of Harris Andrews are probably Dane Zorko and Lachie Neale. And they both had moments in that game where they would have been thinking, I'm just not in, I can't get into the game here. I'm
glad you brought this up. So I think we need to bring in a little review category. One of the hardest things to do in footy, let alone in a final, is to have a really poor start. Like a quiet, you can't get into it, and then to get yourself into the game. Lachie Neale didn't touch it.
No.
Did not touch it.
No.
And a good team and a champion player, no panic. No panic. Didn't try and do anything just selfishly to chase a cheap kick or relieve some of that anxiety. No, just slot back in, worked his way into the team, and then kicks that huge goal,
massive,
physically and metaphorically in the game. That's quality. That is a real tough competitor.
What he walks out of that game with in terms of self-belief and ability to influence a game at that level against the best side in the competition, that's massive. Massive, massive, massive. Hey, there's a bunch of people who want to jump on the line. We'll get to your calls. Giants Bicycle Open Line still riding with you. The one-line takeaway from the winners or the losers. What have you got for us? Your call's next.
Essendon Haval and Great Wall, sticking together with all of Melbourne.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
To your calls before we do, Joel Selwood's injured finger. This is obviously of massive interest for Cats fans and, of course, Collingwood supporters. Joel Selwood's injured finger to be tested during the week. Jack Stephen has strained a hamstring in a practice match on the weekend, unavailable this week.
That hurts, doesn't it?
I reckon he would have come in just watching Geelong too. I reckon.
We talked about it last week. As the game wore on, the power just looked like it was the speed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Cats had another runner or two. He's a little propeller when he gets going.
He could have come into serious contention. Well, that won't be the case. Nathan's in Craigieburn, jumped on the Giant Bikes open line. Good afternoon to you, Nath.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I was just listening to you before. I want to make a point about Radden first, but before that, you were talking about the umpiring.
Yeah.
In the Bulldogs game, I'm a Saints fan. In the last quarter, I reckon the umpires did everything they can for the Bulldogs to win that game. In the backs, they were very soft. You know, in a final, you don't pay those free kicks.
Okay, right. You made your point.
That's fair enough. I mean, we can look down into individual moments, and they're not going to get it perfect. But just talking in general of the finals that we saw on the weekend compared to the regular home and away season football we see, it seemed better because it was let sort of go a little bit more. That's the sort of point I was making, not that they were perfect.
What do you want to say about Brett Ratton, Nate?
Yep. Yeah, with Brett Ratton, I want everyone that their team didn't make the finals, so Melbourne, Carlton, Essendon, Hawke and North, all these teams, just get behind the St Kilda bandwagon at the moment because Brett Ratton is such a good gentleman. The way he talks, watch a few of his conferences if you haven't. He's a very nice guy and deserves a premiership as a premiership coach. If it's not this year, next year.
Mate,
there's a lot of love for Brett Ratton and the Saints. I can even put to the side his Carlton history. I can even put that to one side. He's a St Kilda man, head of the Saints. I'll ignore the historical link to the Blues.
I've started watching a show on Stan called Ted Lasso. Or Lasso. Lasso. I reckon Brett Ratton's got more football acumen than Ted Lasso has soccer acumen, so I'll put that out there. But I've got a feeling that Brett Ratton's all about let's build the spirit. Let's get in touch with let's be a good team man. Let's be a good member of this. And I reckon it's paying off, and that's what this bloke's doing in this silly show that we started watching here. But I reckon it's pretty important. Build it happy, make everyone happy, make everyone feel like they're valued and loved and they're respected and they're heard. And I've got a feeling Ratton does a bit of that. It's me guess about Brett at the moment. They're playing like we said this a few weeks ago about St Kilda. They're playing like a team when they enjoy their teammates' success as much as they enjoy their own.
Well, and it starts from leadership. So you mentioned Brett Ratton. Geez, I love watching Jaron Geary play as a captain. He plays as a pure captain. You see the way he throws himself into that role. That defensive forward role is difficult, and his passion for it. He unsettled the halfback line for the Bulldogs, and then he hits the scoreboard. What that does for the space between the spokes on a wheel, Andy, what it does for the spirit of that team of that's what the captain does, is immense. And he does it all the time. He's a great captain.
That's a very big call, Lockie, and a very fair one, I reckon. Lockie's from Meadows, I think. Is that right, Lockie? Whereabouts are you, mate?
Yeah, in Meadows. Still
Far
here.
away. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll just jump in and back up the umpires. I've got the most clutch moment of the weekend. 90 seconds to go, just after Jack Darling kicked that goal. Ball goes back to the centre square, and that umpire absolutely flushed that bounce. That went 15 metres straight up.
That is a great call.
I saw him lining. I saw it because I'm like, 90 seconds ago, it was a tense moment, and I was a bit like Bob. I was pacing around the house, and I'm like, for some reason, I just thought, surely he's going to throw this thing up. And he lined up with the bounce and absolutely flushed it.
That is a great call.
For that observation, mate, we're going to give you a pair of the Bogs Pillar work boots, mate. They are
well
solid,
deserved.
they are comfortable, and they are dead set waterproof. Plus, they look fantastic. Bogsfootwear.com.au, Lockie, coming your way. Will's in Officer. Give us a takeaway from a winner or a loser. Will give us a one line about one of the other.
So I'm a Richmond supporter first and foremost, but I got one for Brisbane.
Yep.
Back page of the Sun. Cam Rayner's got Trent Cotchin in a shirt front, and the one line is "Bring it on."
Yeah, I haven't seen the photo, but
had a little tussle there on the wing.
Yeah, they did. He's grown into himself too, Cam Rayner. I think he understands there's a bit more to it now than just standing on a bloke's head and kicking one around the corner.
Yeah.
He's developing.
Building, isn't he?
Yeah.
Slowly he's building. It's been a steady build. Hasn't completely broken loose yet, has he?
No. But he's becoming a football, an AFL level footballer, the kid, which is
well, he's in
the
the
best
perfect spot. I mean, for the way he plays in that team, his timing's pretty good.
There's a heap more of you. Hey, Martin, Andy, Greg, we'll get to you on the other side of the break, mate. We'll just get a quick news update out of the way, and we'll get to you next. The Australians are chasing 252. They are 1 for 64 against the New Zealanders. And I just say what a magnificent job Tim and Gaz are doing in the morning as well. By the way, they are doing a super job launching the day, setting the day up for the rest of us. Love listening to those two fellas in the morning.
One team, one
I
dream.
don't think that Timmy Watson is giving Essendon the drive that they require from him.
Well, that was one of the very rare days that, Tommy, that Timmy wasn't doing what Essendon needed from him. Marty's in Glebe. Let's get back to a lot of... I'm maybe getting a bit of text correspondence from Tim at the moment. So, Martin's in Glebe. Good afternoon to you, mate.
G'day, Andy and Bob. Thanks for taking my call. I'd take you with me everywhere I go, even when I'm on the beach at Bondi or Manly.
Stop rubbing it in. Stop rubbing it in right now. Thank you, Martin.
Sorry. Can you have a word to Gary? Neil Danaher, the great man, I'm a passionate Melbourne supporter. He taught Chris Fagan and the young St Kilda coach everything that they know. God love them. But look, I want to congratulate Eddie and the way he's got at the umpires. I want Gary to do that too. Congratulations to the umpires getting Collingwood home. Melbourne beat Collingwood by 70 points, and you look at the free kicks, 16-12 in their favour. They had 70 more free kicks all year and 100 last year. But it just actually went too far. Some of those free kicks that were paid to Collingwood were bizarre, and they weren't paid to the West Coast, particularly the one where McGovern walked over the boundary line.
I reckon it was deliberate out of bounds. I'm going to be on an island here. He knew exactly what he was doing, Jeremy McGovern.
Yep, I'm harsh on this. Players know they're trying to disguise it. If you're trying to disguise it and you want to go out, well, we ping you. You got caught.
He
Sorry,
stepped
buddy.
sideways. He was under a bit of pressure. He wasn't being tackled. He could have kicked the ball inboard or gone back, and he decided to step over the line. It was deliberate out of bounds 100 times out of 100, that one. And good on the umpire for pinging him. Yep. No. And I reckon, I love you, Marty. And I love Mark, and I love the fact that he's with us. But if you're saying that the umpire's got Collingwood over the line, I can't cop that. There was a force of will about that team on Saturday night that was...
Smother of the year. Smother of the year.
He's a magnificent footballer.
Yeah, he's
I know he's got his rough edges. Oh, God, he's a great footballer.
He's smoothed a few of those rough edges too, though. He's kicked goals this year, Taylor Adams, but they wouldn't be in the finals without him.
Oh, no.
When they were on the absolute bones of their backside, he was the one that was able to sort of just keep them just hanging in there.
Here. Andy's in Nidri. Fire away, mate.
Well, the rounds were sensational. That's all I'm going to say. The games were just fantastic. And I think my question is that the key or A-grade footballers for sides who didn't perform well, Dangerfield, Pontettelli, the Pont from Footscray, Dangerfield from Richmond. I can't pronounce his name.
No, you're right. Keep going. Yep.
I can on a good day. And a few others in that category. If they're 10% below par, what's the backup plan for the coaches to get other players involved? Because they depend on these guys so much. And I think that they didn't let them down, but they just were a little bit off, all of them.
Hard to find it, Bob, isn't it?
Cost them.
If the superstars aren't on song, enough of them in the same game at the same time, what do you do?
Well, you need to bat deeper, don't you? Yeah. It's some pretty harsh judgment in there. I would have thought Paddy Dangerfield was pretty good.
Yeah, they get judged against their own.
Yeah, they do.
They get judged
they don't
against
have
their own
one
standards.
out of the box. But yeah, you do need to bat deep in finals, don't you? Your bottom six in finals do seem to get shown up.
Absolutely.
If the 16 to 22 in that side, if they're quality, finals generally brings that out and highlights it, doesn't it?
Sure does. Greg's in Torquay. A couple of calls about the Western Bulldogs. Fire away, Greg.
Yes, good afternoon, boys. Beveridge has been the worst coach his coaching has been the worst in 6 years that he's been there. Absolutely shocking. And I'd like to ask Bob, how can Daniels, Gardner and Rourke Smith play on the back line at the same time?
Because, can I ask you a question? Why wouldn't they play in the back line at the same time? So we've got a tall defender, a medium-high leaping defender, and a small ball user. What would be the problem there?
Okay, Daniels had 4 goals kicked against him in the first half of the game, if you watch the game. Gardner hasn't had a kick for 7 weeks. Rourke Smith is just an ordinary player, and I've never played football, so it's a bit hard for me to say these stupid things.
Didn't.
But how can
Didn't sound like you were having that hard a time saying. You had it ready to go, actually.
Well, I've been
supporting the Bulldogs for 65 years with me money. How can Trengove not play centre-half back, or a Lewis Young? And how can Shackey not get a game? He's had 2 games for the year, 6'5", but Bruce can come from St Kilda and play 1 good game and he hasn't missed a game. Now, Bobby, be fair, that is ridiculous by Bevo.
Well, no, I disagree with you. The one that I would sort of wonder a bit about is Ryan Gardner, because from what I've seen at AFL level, it hasn't quite looked up to it, to my eye.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Bruce has really struggled, but Josh Shackey hasn't exactly bashed the door down to my eye. And the thing with Josh, and we've spoken about this about a bit, Andy, he's on paper a key forward, but he's not a key forward.
He's not.
He's not.
No.
He's a half forward flanker, but he's not a centre half forward.
He might be another one who plays his best footy down the other end of the. I don't know. He might be one who plays his best footy down the other end of the ground at some stage. I don't know.
Sure. Look, Caleb Daniel. Yeah, he might have had a few goals kicked on him in the first half, but that's the he's had a pretty good year. And Rourke Smith is definitely his athleticism is worth persisting with.
Paul's in Rosanna before we get to the break. Fire away, Paul.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Andy. Hi, Bob. You've had a bitter and twisted doggy supporter there. Now you're going to get a positive one. I'm very good friends of Jenny Hodgson. And,
she's a beautiful woman.
By the way, she's forever grateful, Bob, that you made the effort to go to Pat's funeral.
Oh, good on you.
I just thought I'd throw that in the mix. So I spoke to Jenny on Saturday night, and we're very buoyant about the dogs. And we're going to get that Jamara Ugle-Hagen, who's going to be an absolute gun. And we're 100% behind Bevo. And to be quite candid, I get a bit annoyed when I hear about supporters like the guy just who spoke to Paul. Look, he's entitled to his opinion.
No, I reckon that's okay, Paul. I don't think Greg was being disrespectful. I reckon he was just a fan who's put his money on the. I don't think he was being out of line, but I'll just stick up for him for it. But you keep going, mate.
Oh, okay, no, fair enough. But Jenny and I are just Bevo. We're 100% behind Bevo, and we still believe in him. And we still believe that Bevo's got another cup in him, and we could perhaps push forward to top four over next year.
Mate, I was talking to a bloke.
I've got them pushing for top four next year. I think it's all set for that next year. The Dogs.
Talking to a bloke about this Jamara Ugle-Hagen. Is that's his name? Ugle-Hagen?
Yep.
I was talking to a bloke who's seen him play under 18 footy.
Don't hype him up too much.
Oh my God, Father! Oh my God! And this is a good judge of character and a good judge of talent. This bloke's played elite international sport for his country. Knows his footy as well, this bloke. He's jumping out of his hush puppies talking.
It's not a golfer, is it? Because if it's a golfer, I'll put that in the wastebasket.
Jumping out of his hush puppies with excitement about this kid. And he's not even a Western Bulldogs supporter. Hey, there's a handful of callers. Stick around. We'll get to you on the other side of this. Get your calls on the Giants Bicycle Open Line. It is the Tradies Hour for Ace Garders Australia Mobile to last.
Essendon, Havel and Great Wall. Open again after stage 4.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
Right, let's whip through your calls. Woz is in Safety Beach and just wants to take a little U-turn away from footy, I think, just for a second. We'll get back to all your footy calls in a moment. Hi, Wozza.
Hi, guys. How are you? Thanks for that. I know there's been some great AFL games, Lions winning and NRL with the Storm, but got to get behind a bit more airplay, I think, for a young Melbourne girl, Izzy, and a team. They're one win away from the WNBA championship. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know who the player was. There's only so much room in my brain. Who's the young lady we need to know, the young woman we need to know more about, was it? Izzy Magdal from Melbourne, and Sam Wickham, she's flying back into Perth now, but she was on the team as well. So we've got two Australians on the verge. They're only one game away from the WNBA championship for this season.
Well, that's great to hear, mate. We should be able to have all the space for all the sports and all the great athletes around Australia doing the work they're doing. We only have so much room in the brain, unfortunately, so that's why people like you are important to us. Thanks for telling us about it, mate, and good luck to it. Daniel's in Caulfield. What did you make of the umpiring on the weekend, Daniel?
Well, look, I think the umpiring has definitely been a bit of a struggle all year, and that's probably because, in my opinion, the AFL haven't really given the guidelines as clear as we'd like to. But certainly in the Eagles match, I find it fascinating the gentleman that just rang up and complained about the umpiring when they got a free kick in the last minute again with Darling when he shot that goal, which almost gave them a chance to win, like in the grand final in 2018.
Yeah, it was there. I mean, you can pick it. You can't. You said it perfectly, Bob. We're not saying they got every call.
Yeah, no, if you want to look down in the microscope of this one and that one went against me, and just talking about the overview of the finals and the way the games looked because of the way the umpires let the game flow as opposed to the home and away. That's the sort of point we were making, not everything they did on the weekend was correct.
Thanks for your call, mate. Are we up to Daniel or Gary? Is it Daniel in Caulfield? No, Gary in Point Lonsdale. Fire away, Gaz.
Oh, look, firstly, on the umpires, I think people are too preoccupied with umpires. Why don't they leave them alone and just focus on the games? That's all I do. I don't worry about the umpires. But what I called up about was Cadane, a.k.a. Kitty Coleman, playing for the Lions.
Yes.
I'm so excited to see him retain his spot, and it's going to be so valuable, this experience that he's getting, and he's a really likely fellow.
He's a good footballer, mate. He has got upside all over the joint, that bloke. He's tough, composed. He's a beautiful user. Oh, he's going to be a player.
Who have you got as the premiership favourite, Andy? As we sit
I like your. I think Port Adelaide now. I mean, it's stupid, isn't it? I've flipped. I had Richmond Geelong playing off going into the finals campaign, and now I'm not sure either of them are going to make it. So,
do you think that? Have you written the Tigers off? Do you think they?
No, I haven't. I think they and Geelong both win this week. So I think they'll do that. I think they both bounce back. But we'll wait and see, won't we? James is in Caulfield. Good afternoon, mate.
G'day, guys. How are we?
Good,
mate.
Just got an open question for you both. So, with coaching, with coaches taking over teams, new coaches, you normally find that the majority of the teams are kind of, turning over the list and need to revamp. But it kind of left me thinking with the Cats at the moment. Not that I don't like Scotty being there, but I just thought it'd be a perfect time for him to just do whatever he wants to do with picking the team he wants for the finals. But if we were to go out in straight sets or to lose, I just think the time of him stepping aside and getting a fresh new pair of eyes, because in theory, Cats will probably make the top 8 for the next 2 years. So you're giving your coach a run at playing finals, and I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Is it time? So you're sort of suggesting that it's time up for Chris Scott at Geelong. I mean,
he's got credits in the bank. I don't think having Chris Scott move to the side would be a likely option. But it is an intriguing situation if they go straight sets.
That's what we talked about on Friday, didn't we?
The pressure will build to an uncomfortable level. And how they react to that with their list and maybe support around Chris Scott, who knows? But the idea of moving the coach on is a foreign one to my logic.
That's a massive game Saturday.
It is a big one. Yeah, it's a huge
one. It's big. Tommy's in Roval. Fire away, mate.
G'day, lads. How you going? I know it's a tradies hour, Bob, but you actually confused a hell of a lot of trades out here. You said the bottom 6 players from 16 to 22. It actually makes 7, mate. So I don't know what's going on in your match.
Yes. Tommy, I didn't want to say anything. I'm glad you picked him up, mate. Well done. As we've said on this show a few times, maths is not our strong suit.
When we go numbers or percentages, we generally fall over. And there's Jules' first little Friday review segment.
That didn't take long.
Sorted.
That did not
very
take
long
at all. Right, Rob Harding, Craig Lambert, Andy Harper, they're all to come. We've got to get to backdraft number 11 at some stage as well.
One. That's big.
Yeah, it's massive. We just ran out of time on Friday. We will get there, but just want to keep having a chat with you lot. 1300 736 736 in between the bits and pieces we've got. Your one line, the winners, the losers. What's the takeaway? What's the look forward? We want to hear from you right throughout the afternoon. Blimey, Coxie, what are you doing to me, mate? There's things going on left, right and centre there.
Jeez, you had a mouthful of chips about a minute ago. What is that you're eating over there?
I've got these little, the chili, the little chili, sweet chili little numbers in the line.
Right.
Those ones are bloody delicious, these things. Problem is you can't stop once you get going. Hey, Dino, because Coxie threw me, don't blame me, but we'll get to you on the other side of the news, mate, so I'm going to stick around. feel free to do so and we'll get your thoughts then. Tradies out for Ace Gutters, Australian made, built to last. The Australian women are rattling through this run chase. Haynes 63 off 68, Lanning 34 off 37. 9 for 252 they're chasing. They're 1 for 123.
Essendon Havel and Great Wall, sticking together with all of Melbourne.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Maher on SEN.
Great to have you with us this Monday afternoon. Back to your calls. There's obviously a great deal of interest in the winners and the losers from the weekend, the way the game's played. We'll get to all of your calls throughout the afternoon, all the way through till 6 o'clock. We've got a couple of guests joining us on the way through, which we'll just park the calls for a moment. We've got a lot of texts coming through for Temper on the Temper text machine. Craig Lambert about to join us, but give us a sense for what's coming through out there, Roberto.
Yeah, there's been a lot coming through, Andy. Here's a couple of questions for us. This is from one of our regulars, Brett. Is it fair to say that the only reason the first week of finals was so great is because only one game was played in Queensland at night? I would think that's not right. I would think that's pretty
Well, they said
unreasonable.
that to Brett, all the feedback from people who were ground side, boundary side, said the conditions were perfect. So the sense that there's always a dewy surface dished up at night time in Brisbane, I don't think that was at play the other night. So I'm not sure that was.
What about this one, Andy? How does Chris Scott have credit in the bank? Fair income, no attached name to that. Can I just throw a couple of stats to you, Andy?
How does he have credit in the bank?
Yeah,
does somebody really want an answer to that question?
He's coached 214 games, Andy. Yeah. 153 wins. That is a percentage of 71.9 winning percentage and a flag. Now, there's the question mark on the last few years around the run of finals, but that's credit in the bank. 72% more or less winning ratio is unbelievable.
Credit in this league, when you're supposed to take your turn down the bottom of the ladder, it's been remarkable. Whether you think they've underachieved by not winning more premierships in this period of time, you can have that view, but it's very hard to.
He's also looking magnificent at the moment. Has the Queensland weather been kind on Chris Scott? He looks just like a Hollywood leading man at the moment.
Hair slicked back and a brown skin. Magnificent.
Well,
one man who
look at you and I, we look just dreadful. You and I,
pasting
vampires. Vampires stuck inside all day.
who need a good feed of blood just to get a bit of rouge back in our cheek.
A bit of life in our face.
Have you got anything else? Because Craig Lambert's listening to this. He doesn't need to hear any more about you and me looking like vampires.
Well, this was just from Colin Hawthorne. Guys, you were amazingly 100% spot on in regards to Motlop on Thursday and 100% wrong re Jack Henry. So,
no, that was you. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
Don't say guys. We were both on Motlop.
No, we're a united front.
No.
When we get it wrong, we're a united front. When we get the credit, take Lions share.
No, I'm very much prepared to. No, we don't win together and lose together, Julian. That's not what we do. We will. When somebody else has made cockamamie call like that, right? Craig Lambert's been good enough to join us. For a lot of reasons. We want to get his thoughts. I'm sure he would have watched a lot of footy. He loves his footy across the weekend. But for the very good reason that he turns 52 today. And if we are going to be consistent on anything on this show, it is that we want to ring people up who have made significant contributions to the game on their birthdays, thank them for their contribution to the game, and wish them a happy birthday. And that's exactly what we're doing. Hello, Lammy.
How you going, guys? Great to be here.
Happy birthday, mate.
Yeah, 52. I'm not sure. I just said to Julian before. I'm not sure you celebrate 52, but I suppose every birthday's a good day. So beautiful weather here in New South Wales. So had a lovely day yesterday at Drummoyne Sailing Club. I've got to be careful to my fellow Victorians. I know you're doing it tough down there. So shout out to all you guys. But yeah, just chilling at home with the kids actually today.
Nice. What's your connect? Have you still got it? You've been, doing a lot of work. You're at Brisbane, obviously, post playing days, and you did some. You and your family did some unbelievable work with the Giants when they were in their formative years. Craig, have you still got a connection to footy somewhere at the moment?
Yeah, I actually took up the head of AFL in St Joseph College this year, Andy. So, so we were lucky enough to get 6 rounds away during COVID and all that. So, absolutely had a ball with St Joseph College. So, Joey's is really renowned for its rugby, but a lot of the private schools now are actually starting to put AFL into their sporting code. So, I was head of AFL and had a ball with the year 9, 10s, 11s, and 12.
Craig, you've had a lifetime in footy, but as a player, predominantly at the Tigers and the Lions, how do you go watching those two sides in a final the other night? Where's your heart lean towards?
I knew you'd ask me that, Bob. I loved your comments on Chris Scott. He's looking quite sharp too. So,
isn't he? Yes. Dreamy.
It's a tough one because obviously played 7 years at Richmond and 7 years at the Lions, and I suppose I'm really proud of Brisbane Lions. I mean, I think Chris Fagan, Danny Daly, and the coaches have done an enormous job the last 3 or 4 years to build the list, through the draft and then acquiring guys like Lockie Neal and Jared Lyons, and just seeing guys like Daniel Rich and Steph Martin and Zorks and those sort of guys starting to get some success. It's just great because it looks like a really happy club. But then you look at Richmond, and Richmond were the first team to give me an opportunity back in 87, 88 to play VFL, AFL. And I love that club because, the first club that gives you the opportunity, you always remember when you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old and you're not sure whether you're going to make it, and a club actually took a chance on me, and Kevin Bartlett was enormous in my career and backed me in. So, I mean, I watched that game. It was just it was such a cracking game. All the finals were magnificent over the weekend. So really, I can't lose, whether Richmond win or Brisbane win. I still believe probably they're going to be at the grand final, if you have to ask me.
Yeah, okay. How much of the footy did you watch over the weekend, Craig?
I watched all of it, Andy. I still love it, and I just thought that the standard was just enormous. The pressure. It goes up so much. I mean, you guys love your footy. I know you love the Blues, Andy, and Bob's been there for close to 300 games. But I just thought the standard. Some of the kids that are coming through. I heard you talk before about Rosie and. Dersner's courage was insane. I mean, I've seen him do that probably 3 or 4 times this year. And that Butters, I just had one of your favourites. I had Lukey Power on the call before wishing me a happy birthday. And I actually think that Zach Butters reminds me of a very young Luke Power, actually. So he said to say hi to you, Andy.
Yeah, mate, he's doing some magnificent work at...
did he say hello to me? I know Luke Power. Did he say hello to me?
He loves you. Hey, Bob, you're universally loved, mate. Come on.
And that's so what are you saying, Craig?
Luke didn't mention Bob, but he mentioned you, Andy. So he said hello to Andy.
Well, because he's at the right footy club nowadays, and they're on the cusp of doing something pretty special, and Luke's right in the middle of it all. Hey, Craig, the reason I ask you about how much footy you watch, Bob was talking before about at the start of the show about the way the game was umpired, and the slight change in approach that the umpires seem to take come final time. You must have played close to 10. I can't remember exactly how many finals. You might know exactly off the top of your head, but you played a heap of finals footy. Did you notice as a player, can you remember that there was a different application to the trade come finals time that there was during a home and away season?
You probably, I think that that probably the umpires are trying to let it play on a bit more in the finals. I think the 50-50 calls where sometimes it can go against you during the home and away, and sometimes it can go with you. I just think those ones they just let play. And I think that's good for the game. If it's a 50-50 call, and the umpires do an amazing job. Even though I used to say have a few kind words to them now and then, but I think you're right. What you're saying is they actually, if there is that dubious one and it's not conclusive, I think they're pretty sure that they want to keep the ball moving. I thought they umpired really well, and they're definitely. I think there is a change once it comes to finals time. It's definitely the game changes. It becomes more man on man. It becomes more contested footy, and I think the umpires let it flow a little bit more.
We've asked a lot of ex-players in recent times, particularly in 2020, Craig, what do they think of the modern game? And a lot of them are a bit, sort of take it or leave it. They're not automatically enthusiastic about the way the game's played now. I would have thought that somebody like you, who was so good in the traffic and in the contest, you would look at today's footy. I'm going to guess here, you would look at the way the game's played in a shoebox these days with 10, 15, 20 people around the foot. You'd love it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I have my sons who are 21 and 22 just tell me all the time that I wouldn't be able to play in the modern game because it's changed so much. So they love that one, sort of sticking it to me. But the contested footy, I mean, that's what I built my game about. So finals, it becomes, as we said before, it becomes a real contested game. The amount of playing these guys where it is congestion, where you've got 18, 20 people around the ball, is something that I used to love. I used to love the connection with your ruckman. Matthew Clark was probably the best ruckman I ever rode to. Just the ability where it's eye contact, might be a finger point, where he knew where I wanted the ball to go. I just had to make sure I had to get my bloke off me. And then just having the guys like your halfbacks and your wingers around, guys like Bob who could use the ball a hell of a lot better than me and try and release it to them. So it is funny. It's more congested in the finals, but then home and away it can be a lot of uncontested footy, isn't it? So the one thing you know that if you get into the finals and you're lucky enough to make finals and then make the big dance, it does become a contested game.
So you're talking about Matthew Clark and your relationship with him. We're talking to Craig Lambert, who turns 52 today. But we've spent a bit of time this year and probably in the last two seasons, Craig, talking about this era of ruckman that we're living through at the moment. The top 5 or 6 ruckmen in the league at the moment are very good and would be good ruckmen in any. How sophisticated was your setups, your options, your communication between you and someone like Matthew Clark back in the day? Did you have a whole lot of different calls that you used to make? And the other two guys,
what were the code calls, Craig?
We didn't really. Doc Clark and Doc Clark, we worked on it a lot. I don't know how much these days, Bob, you'll be able to probably tell me, but we used to work probably a good 15, 20 minutes after each session. We would work on just hit zones, a lot of our combination work, and Doc was just incredible because he had really soft hands for a ruckman. But it was all where the person who was playing me lined up. So, if my guy was on my right side, it's quite simple. You push it to my left. If he wanted to play me in front, I'd squeeze him under the ball, get it over the back. So a lot of it was dependent on where the opposition wanted to put themselves against me. And you look at some of the great clearance players, like Patrick Cripps and some of those guys, and you look at, obviously, some of the guys have been great run-with players, like your Cameron Lings and your Brett Kirks and these sort of guys. They never want to try. They always play up the back shoulder because the big beasts like Cripsy and all that, they want leverage. So if you don't give them leverage, so if I'm trying to answer that one with Doc, I'd never allow an opposition player to get my back shoulder. I'd actually keep fighting them until I could get into one side, and then I had the leverage to push off. So I still see it now where guys get squeezed under the ball and guys just sort of push them under the ball. And I find it crazy that these strong, really great clearance players, if the guy's got your back, he really has control over that stoppage. So, but it's just, I'm sure they do a lot of work on it these days. They do work on everything. But my combination with Doc Clark was just an incredible understanding of whatever the opposition was doing to me, he knew where I wanted the ball.
That's a great insight. So last one, we'll have to let you go in a moment, but you talk about the modern midfielder. Well, and you mentioned a guy like Cripps, but there's others who are these 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5".
Yep.
Who was there a beast back in the day? Was there somebody who was you were routinely coming up against as a pure midfielder who was exceptional in terms of their size? Like they're run of the mill, these blokes today. But
well, probably I'm looking back. But I mean, Koutafidis was that sort of beast, wasn't he? Remember those couple of years he had where he was just unstoppable.
You've set him off now, Lemmy. You don't know what you've done now, Craig. There's the next 2 hours of our show done and dusted. I'm going to go on a Carlton rant here. Get comfy, folks. Put the kettle on.
But he was that sort of special, 6'3", 6'4", dynamic player that would come into the middle. I mean, through my time, probably the early days, I suppose, I'm trying to think of some of the real 6'3" that were there. There wasn't too many 6'3" in the late 80s, early 90s. But you had your really strong sort of inside mids that had come in. But yeah, I watch that part of the game really closely because I'm really intrigued by stoppage work and clearances and all that. And sometimes it puzzles me where you see guys continually playing against stronger players, and they want to either get their body, which is an advantage for someone like a Cripps or a really great stoppage player, or if you reverse that, you've got someone like Cripsy or Fife who are just spectacular players. When you're seeing them get squeezed under the ball like a Matty DeBoer does and all that, that might be able to happen once, but it shouldn't happen ever again. You've got to be able to once you get squeezed under the footy, the red flag should be there. If you're a clearance player, I'm bringing this guy back. I'm creating space in front of me, and he's not getting it back for the rest of the game.
I have got one more for you, and it's not to do with the finals. You and your family did so much work, trying to help build the culture at the Giants. I wouldn't even know what year you finished up there, Cruck, so you might be able to remind me. But are you disappointed to have seen the number of players that you spent time with who have exited the... We understand why it's happened, but are you disappointed that so many of them have exited the club and it looks like maybe one or two might be following suit? How does that sit with you?
I suppose... there has been players. It's always difficult to lose quality players. I mean, we love that football club. My wife still works for the Giants, and they had a pretty average year considering the talent on their list. But I just think like Zach Williams is one that I know the club really didn't want to lose, and I think it was hard for Zach to leave the club because he does love the footy club. But the free agency, obviously. He's 25, 26 years of age now. He's probably looking to set himself up for the rest of his career and the rest of his life. And, he's got a beautiful mum and a couple of sisters and one lives in Albury. So I just hope that, I'm pretty confident that hopefully Jeremy Cameron re-signs. I'd be really surprised if he's not in the Orange next year. But, just with free agency, I think the club has done a pretty good job, to be honest, over the last 3 or 4 years to hold on to most of the players they wanted to hold on to. Okay. And I just hope that they can actually, I just hope they can sort of get back because they started so well against Geelong before COVID hit, and they just didn't look settled in hub life. And unless you're involved within the footy club and you're within the four walls, you don't know what's going on. But I still think that there's some really good talent, and hopefully they can get all the rest of the guys they want to get re-signed, and hopefully it was an aberration and they can have a fantastic year next year.
Mate, great to hear your voice. Happy birthday. Great to get your insights into how that sort of sets up and plays out in the middle of the ground. We really appreciate you joining us on the show, mate. Thanks for your time.
Always a pleasure, guys. No worries.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Craig Lambert. Talking about hub life, gee whiz, there's been a bit of stuff.
Really?
Whiz. Oh, yeah.
Can we just, on the back of tall midfielders, did you know how tall Jared Berry is? This came up on the telecast the other night, and I nearly fell out of the couch.
You fell out of the couch?
He's 6'4". Yeah.
6'4"?
He's 6'4".
Jared Berry?
Yes.
No, he's not.
He is 6'4", Andy.
You're making that up.
I'm
you hit
not.
your head when you fell out of the couch. I don't know what you're doing in the couch as opposed to being on it. Well, you're not in it. You're on it. You fell off the couch, not fell out of it.
You had me on the Pinot Noir all afternoon. I was a bit drowsy by half time.
Back to your calls, 1300 736 736. I want to hear what you've got to say about Mason Cox as well. I want you to talk about Coxie when we come back.
Football's coriander.
Well, you can explain that after this, please.
Essendon, Havel and Great Wall. Open again after stage 4.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
New Zealand, 9 for 252 at the end of their 50 overs. Australia, 2 for 156. 27 overs gone. Haynes out for 82. Healy out for 21. Lanning, who she actually picks on New Zealand. It's a bit mean what she does to New Zealand, Meg Lanning. Her average when chasing in one-day internationals against New Zealand is something like 90. It's in the 90s. Can't remember exactly what it is. When chasing, she averages something like 94.5, and she's a 46. She's a phenomenal player. Con's in Lilydale has jumped on the Giant Bicycle open line. Before we get to you, Con, I'm now getting the temper text sign from my colleague down the Zoom lens. So hang on there, Connie. What do you got for us, Bob?
I've got this from Mozza. I've got my tent pitched proudly in the dislike Mason Cox camp, and I dislike him even more when I see his finals records.
When you see his final records, Mozza,
well, I suppose because it goes against what Mozza wants, because he's got a very good finals record. Boys, I'm a Bombers supporter, but it is one of the more exciting things in the game at the moment when Mason Cox is on fire and taking big marks and kicking goals. He brings a bit of American swagger and kicks set shot goals better than most players who were born in Australia. Andy, have I not told you this many times?
Many times, to the point
international
of actually being
players,
a bit boring about it.
International players are better set shot kicks. They don't miss.
No, there's something to that.
They haven't
learned
bad habits. They haven't learned bad habits. They're a blank canvas.
Well, they don't realise
his
how...
3 goals, Mason Cox's 3 goals on the weekend in that first quarter, that's worth 6. In Western Australia against the Eagles.
Oh, Yep. Oh, no doubt it is. His finals, he's putting together an unbelievably admirable finals record, Mason Cox. He's having high watermark moments pretty regularly in finals.
I wish his Collingwood teammates had run away from him.
It was driving me mad. I mean, I
Stop running towards him. Run away.
Kick it to him, get it into him quickly, and get away from him.
Yep.
Let him have that boy Barras. Poor old Barras. Oh, he was in all sorts of trouble for about 15 minutes. Yeah. He had no idea how to play him.
His socks were full of anxiety. Old Barras. It was just pouring out of him.
Oh, absolutely. All he wanted was Brodie Myercheck to fall back on Mason.
Yeah.
Just keep coming back. Keep flying against him, for God's sake, whatever it takes.
He is football's coriander, though, and it was a
What
win.
does that mean?
Well, because you're either in or you're out. You're either a Mason Cox believer or you think, nah, no good.
No, you can't think he's no good. Yeah, I don't think you can think he's no good anymore. I don't think you can hold that view. I think you're allowed to say that he's inconsistent, but I don't think you can say the boy can't play, because the boy can play.
He can play.
Yeah. Con, before we get to the news, fire away, mate.
The boy can play. He kicked 3 straight. Tomahawk kicked 0-5. 2 great footballers. Accuracy means everything. I just felt compelled to call because that game, Collingwood West Coast, was one of the greatest games I've ever seen. I'm 47. Football is still the greatest game on earth. And, we have moratoriums every year about the state of the game. And I always laugh and cringe. People ring up, they want rule changes, they want this, they want that. But football has a way of finding, the great games. We had one of the greatest games ever on Saturday night, and 2 magnificent heavyweight teams who played incredible football and brought a massive smile to my face. And just coming full circle at 47, it was a joy to see the, young Maher and young Dacos. I mean, Moore's one of the quickest backmen I've ever seen. And Dacos is coming along nicely. I mean, that Collingwood side is good. I don't follow them. I'm a Geelong fan, but Collingwood are sensational. They might not play like that again next week, but they can certainly bottle what they've done on the weekend. And, I don't know who's going to win against Collingwood Geelong, but they're very good side, Collingwood.
Oh, they've got a lot of bottle. Yeah, they've got ticker. Thanks for your call, Con.
They've regularly had these kind of finals.
Yeah,
I know it was an extraordinary win, but they do have a tendency to pull these out more often than most clubs, don't they?
They make you beat them. It's a thing. They make you beat them when it's really, and you can beat them, but they make you beat them. West Coast, there'll be a few. There should be half a dozen West Coast Eagles blokes thinking, "Oh, maybe I need to get my head out of my own backside a bit next time and stop worrying about being a West Coast Eagle in Perth and reading the front page of the West Australian and being a bit happy with myself. And just, well, maybe there's a few of them, I'm just saying, who should do that next time. And see what their Collingwood opponents who don't have as much talent as them did.
I wonder what you'd say about the Blues, who didn't even make the 8.
Well, that's the great thing about not making finals. Football, you don't get the blowtorch applied to you like this. Have you got one more text to read out before we get to the news?
Yeah, Bob, please tell Andy to stop asking questions where he knows Cooter will be the answer. As Plough says, if he does a whole spew up. Good on you, Christian Perth. I can...
Nice, Les Bigland's just brought up the news. Jacob,
you want some
Andy Harper's going to join us after we get through a couple of calls.
Well, you'll have to
try and make sense of what happened in the wee small hours of the morning until that powerhouse of English football. Remarkable stuff. Jacob's in Carrum Downs, I should say. And wants to have a chat. Hi, Jacob.
G'day, James. How are we?
Very well, thank you.
That's the way. Just the Bulldogs. They've got an emerging superstar in Tim English, but to go into that final, I reckon one out, he was exposed a bit by the experience of Ryder, which allowed Marshall to reap the rewards and actually be the third-ranking fantasy player on the ground. My takeaway, the Dogs need to find someone to do for English what Ryder has done for Marshall. In my mind, there's a bloke available. His name is Matty Cruiser, and hear me out. He's healthy. The latest injury he had was acute, wasn't chronic. He's an elite cap ruckman and a competitor. Retired because Pitney and De Conning are the future. But Carlton are not in the window yet. The Dogs are. And in 2021, I reckon Cruiser can do for English what Ryder did for Marshall.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I'm interested with reduced lists, Andy. If the Dogs feel like they need to support Tim English with a backup, do they go a backup ruckman or a hybrid? That's the question I'm wondering.
Yeah.
The Tom McDonald, Lee Brown, that kind of a player, or Cruiser. Because don't tell me Cruiser's a ruckman forward. He's not.
No, he has on occasions pitching.
I know, but at this age, with his
probably not
injury history, he's a backup ruckman.
Yeah.
Which they could do. That makes some logic as well, but I just wonder if what move they make, if they make one at all.
It's an interesting proposition, mate. Jason's in Essendon. Good afternoon to you.
Boys, how are we?
Good, mate.
Good, thank you.
So, Josh Jacobs, is he the best father-son currently playing in the league? Obviously not over career, I'm not saying that. He's flown past Josh Kennedy and Gary Ablett Jr., and he just reminds me of a young steel side bottom. He is a gun.
He was good. You know what? He was good the other night.
I don't know if he's the best father-son, but geez, for his first final, just his first quarter, you thought, oh, he looks right at home. At home.
No one else could handle the footy.
Yeah.
Everybody on that ground, probably bar Liam Ryan earlier, was fumbling the footy. Josh Dacos wasn't.
He feels like, we talked about the 3 phases, Andy. So drafted on talent, then you've got to learn the human battleships, then you've got to be able to have that in your mind, the tactics and strategy, and play on instinct. You can see it. He's gotten to that phase this season. He knows how to train hard. He's got his body right, but he's playing with instinct and with a lot more ease. He's not overthinking it as much. That would be my view of Josh Dacos this year.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Having watched the early stages of his development at the level. It's a good call. Scotty's in Perth. Last one before we get to the break. Hi, mate.
How you going, guys? What I liked on the weekend, being a Dockers supporter, is Collingwood beating the Eagles by a point. And the other point is, Dockers have just signed up 5 of their young players: Toby Watson, Adam Chera, Caleb Sarong, Hayden Young, and Brennan Cox.
Yep.
And our club is going to go full force, I reckon, next year with all these young kids hanging around.
Heading in the right direction, Scotty. Yeah, no, they're heading in the right direction. No question. They'll get a couple of those players back from injury, 1 or 2 of those key defenders back, and that's a pivotal plank. Right, we're just going to park footy for a minute. We'll get back to it straight after the 5 o'clock news, mate. The whole last hour, nothing but footy. But fans of the English Premier League need some clarity. They need someone to explain to them what took place this morning. Andy Harper makes sense where there is no sense to be found.
Have they made the goals bigger over there or something?
I'll say, Liverpool and Manchester United conceded between them within the space of a couple of hours 13 goals this morning.
Bigger goals, I think. They've moved the posts.
Maybe it's a handicap. Yeah, maybe they're trying to defend bigger goals. Well, that could be it. Wonder if Harps can tell us that after this.
Essendon Havel and Great Wall, sticking together with all of Melbourne.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
And Grealish is in again, and this could be 7. History made. Jack Grealish scores goals 6 and 7.
It still doesn't quite seem right. It was like a bad dream that a lot of us haven't quite woken up from. 7. And this was an hour after Manchester. Their pain started, give or take an hour after Manchester United had been hammered 6-1 at home by Spurs. We can't make any sense of it. When I can't make sense of something to do with the global football code, there's only one person I turn to, because he can
You didn't like my theory that
the
goals have been bigger and that Liverpool's still drunk from celebrating?
No. Well, I don't mind either of them, but I'm sure that's not the case. So when we're in a fog and we can't seem to see through, I turn to Andy Harper, one of the great voices of Australian football, to just shine the light on it for me. And Harp's been good enough to come on and do that for us. So the next 5 or 6 minutes will be a bit better. We'll understand how this is all taking place.
Gin clear it'll be.
It's spot on. Hello, Harps.
Conker, mate, what an intro. For a moment, I thought you were running a promo for an ambulance chaser.
Well, I've come to the right
But, you know,
place.
when your world's collapsed, you know, when times are tough, who do we call? Like Ghostbusters or something?
Well, I call you, and you're always good enough. More often than not, you're good enough to answer the call.
Anytime you ring, mate, I drop anything cocky.
Of course you do. No, you're a great friend of everybody here, and we appreciate it. Can you explain, make some sense of it for me, please? How is it possible to have happened what happened this morning?
Well, look, is the moon still full? It's sort of lagging a bit now. A few days ago it was full. I know I was howling at it anyway, but it's I don't know. If you say it's bizarro world, we've been saying that in a number of contexts for about a year now. Anything that's going wrong, can you put it down to COVID? I don't know. It was just the most ridiculous set of results. You know, if you're a Liverpool fan, licking your wounds, but as you said, you know, just before your particular humiliation was to unfold, you were rolling around laughing at Manchester United losing at home in a record fashion to Spurs. You're thinking, how good's this? And then you're not going to go out for a week.
But it seems to me, Harps, that it's these sorts of losses are unforgivable. You've got squads that are spending, you know, hundreds of millions of quid putting together their lists. And okay, you can have a bad one every now and again. And Villa knock them over 3-1, and they've had one player. Is one of the strikers.
Yeah, that's
out
Is it
3-1's
a bad day? When it's 7-2 or 6-1, does that
spot on?
Does that suggest there's broader, more serious issues?
Well, in the short term, it has to until the players get a chance to redress the situation, and of course they're not going to for 10 days or so because they've got an international set of matches coming up. So. You know, both clubs will have to cool their heels from a Premier League perspective, and I hope things correct. But you know, these sort of scorelines, these performances that bring these scorelines, are a massive worry. You know, I'm not necessarily a Liverpool fan. I don't mind them, but I'm certainly a big fan of Jurgen Klopp, the coach. He's my type of bloke, actually. And he's come out when posed with that question: is this a reflection of a deeper malaise at your football club? He didn't sort of get offended or defensive or duck and weave. He said, we'll see. We'll see in the next game or the next couple of months if there's a bigger problem here. But, you know, he was extremely disappointed, as you would be, with the lack of fight in the team. And, you know, we've spoken about this before, Cocker. There's sometimes talking sport can be much ado about nothing. We come up with this analysis and that statistic and, this tactical tweak and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Really the beauty of sport, at the sort of sport with which we engage as fans and then commentators, there's a lot of really basic drivers that determine whether you win or lose. And it's not a tactical tweak. It's whether you've got enough fight in you. And Liverpool didn't turn up to fight. And Aston Villa have started the season brilliantly. I'm really happy for them. And Jurgen Klopp's forced to look at his championship team, his premiership team, and say, we just didn't have anything in our stomach to fight this. And that's a massive concern. And look, you're right. 3-1's a bad day. 7-2, people start thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
So you wonder, I look at it, Harps and Bob, and I go, okay, is this a team that thinks it's so good that it can just push a button? Okay, we've had a bad one today. Next week we'll turn up, we'll get our heads right, and we'll win 5-0 or we'll win 4-1. And if that's crept into any group anywhere, they think they can just turn up and get the job done without. Well, then you're cooked. That does not end well.
No, and look, I would, in defence of the players being the types of characters they were to carry Liverpool through to the title, I don't think that's an accusation that necessarily, at this stage at least, could be levelled. Apart from just trying to work out how all these cards fell so dramatically, is there a possibility of whatever's going on in the world providing a bit of a leveller? We've got Everton starting brilliantly, Aston Villa starting brilliantly, Manchester City slipping, Manchester United being humiliated at home, Liverpool losing badly. I think most objective observers are hearkening for a day when results weren't so predetermined because of the size of a club's chequebook. And I know a lot of money's been spent in this off-season again, but is there a slight possibility that somehow by hook or crook there's a little bit of equalisation going on, and maybe teams that have been living, in the lap of luxury for a bit longer than they might, maybe behind the scenes, something like COVID and the impact it's having on business models around the place, maybe that might be starting to cause people to look sideways, whereas perhaps a newer, sleeker, a more efficient machine rolls into the competition and starts surprising people. I'd like to think that might be part of this as well, because that would make for a very, very interesting season to come.
Oh, no, I think a lot of people would rejoice in that. We'll let you go in a moment. Just changing tack, can you tell us about the significance of the appointment of the Matilda's new coach, Tony Gustavsson?
Well, the players seemingly are all very excited about him. I know there was a lot of movement behind the scenes, pretty much outside the playing ranks, to ensure that it was a female got the job for various reasons, and that's a reasonable argument to pursue. But my understanding from talking to people close to the team is that the Matildas are pretty happy with this appointment. He's got great credentials. He's had a ringside seat of the best team in women's football over recent decades. And I think the big thing we've got to guard against is that because he was assistant coach to the World Cup winning team, that all of a sudden we think, well, he was doing necessarily all the work. With that American team, he's obviously got great experience and great credentials. He's been very well welcomed, as I can see it, by the women of the Matildas, and that's a great sign, and I think he's going to do very well. He's got a real big job. I mean, what an honour that the game's bestowed upon him to coach our national team as host of that World Cup in 2023. It's a massive honour. I'm pretty confident he can repay the faith. It's just a matter of how far they can go.
You're a good man. Thanks for helping us at least think our way through the devastation.
I don't know about that, Cogger. Yeah, I provided more mud, I think. More mud, less gin.
Something doesn't. Yes, you know what, Harp? Sometimes the more you talk about some things, the less sense they seem to make. But I'm glad we had the chance to.
That's it, mate. Just two teams, blokes or girls, whoever it is, get out there, forget all the rubbish. Just have a go, will you? Just have a red hot go.
That's all you want. That's all you want. Andy Harper from Fox Sports joining us. That's all you want. He can have all the mumbo-jumbo and all the jargon and all the this and that.
The foundations, Andy. Have a crack.
Unless you're in, you're out. You don't know what we're talking about. Well, hang on. I know what he's talking about, and I'm very out. A bloke who's in is Rob Harding.
The mechanic.
He's our mechanic, and he's going to join us after the 5 o'clock news at some stage. And I can't believe we're already at 5 o'clock. Where'd those 2 hours go?
Essendon, Havel and Great Wall. Open again after stage 4.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Maher on SEN.
Out here, West Coast. They've got it bound to McGovern. Inside a minute. They've got it on the wing to Waterman, who gets it to Gaff. He can go short to Kelly. Kelly will mark on the logo. They run. Cole. His kick was smothered. Well done, Taylor Adams. Ball comes back. Chris comes to Pendlebury. It's going to come out. Hoskinelli should mark and go back. Collingwood are going to win.
Yeah, brilliant. And they should, and they did, and magnificent. And the smother was an absolute Bendix brake big moment. Australian technology for all-weather confident braking. Want cleaner wheels that fit Bendix brakes. Goss was half watching the clock. He knew the game was over, and he was commentating to the clock. The clock was in. The clock ever listened to the call? He knew the game was over. She should have known that. That game would have been as great as it was and as thrilling as it was. It would have been 33% more, and I've done all the maths on this. 33% more exciting had we not known how
Well,
long
are
there was
people
left to
listening to you, Andy? That's
No,
what I'm
they're
worried
not.
about.
No, they're not.
Telling me, dreaming. Whose ear do you need, the AFL or the
Steve
broadcasters?
Steve Hocking.
Who's in charge of it?
Yeah, probably. Well, I think if a broadcaster wanted to do a game a week, like if Seven or Fox decided we're going to have a game a week where we go up instead of down, and it was just a random game, pick a game, and then you're at the mercy of the game as to whether it made a jot of difference at all or not. There would be a game or two throughout the course of the year where it would become a factor, and I guarantee you, if nobody in the joint but the timekeepers knew how long there was to go, it would be it would just add a layer of excitement to the finish. I don't know how many times I'm an old man, and I'll keep saying this until I bore myself into retirement, I suppose. But
can we talk about the smother?
Smother was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Rob Harding joins us as he does every single Monday to unpack it all for us and cast a critical eye on the whole thing. Hello, Rob.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Bob.
Hey, Rob. Sorry, Andy. I just want to ask Rob specifically about the smother and the decision Taylor Adams made to come forward to defend Rob. Is that about as good as it gets if, from the coach's box perspective, they would have been just in tears of joy in that coach's box as Taylor Adams did that, wouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely. What a great moment for Collingwood, and a great decision to come forward, impact the play at a crucial moment. And yeah, in the coach's box, those are the things you're looking for. Your players to stand up in those key moments late in the game, and you've run in a normal game, you've run 10, 12, 13, 14 Ks, whatever it is, you're completely cooked, and you have to make that split-second decision, and to see a player execute it like that, just fantastic.
What was out the back? Did either of you two get a chance to, at any stage, go back to the tape or see the down the ground at some stage? Have either of you seen that yet? What was behind? Did you get a sense for what was behind him, Rob?
I think the West Coast forwards had stretched with a fair bit of length. So you're looking at some one-on-ones behind the ball. Mycheck had gone back as a seventh late in the game, and West Coast had held their back six. So at that point, McGovern was the one they were trying to free up, and he'd been involved. And, as the play was unfolding, it looked so much like the end of the 2018 grand final. McGovern intercept, kicks it off the line a little bit. I think they had some good looks forward to the ball. So it was an incredible decision by Taylor Adams.
What do you put it down from a coaching perspective, Rob? What did you see that helped contribute to the Collingwood win?
I think this was an enormous win for the Collingwood coaches box, for Bucks and Brenton Sanderson, Rob Harvey, Matty Boyd. All those guys would have been absolutely wrapped with what they got on Saturday night. They got speed of ball off half-back, which they haven't really had through this year. They've been quite composed and quite slow a fair bit of the time, but they got some really good overlap run. They shifted West Coast defence, didn't let them get set, so they got the ball out to the fat side a little bit more, and they really nailed their selections. So Levi Greenwood goes to Tim Kelly, holds him to 12 touches, and Darcy Cameron was a second ruck, which they really haven't done too much this year, to at least give Grundy some support against Nat Nui and Oscar Allen. And the decision in the last quarter to start Darcy Cameron in the first centre bounce and have him in the final couple of centre bounces as well against Nick Nat, just enormous faith shown by the Collingwood Match Committee, and every decision they made came off.
Take us inside that. Is that what is that a reflection of, Rob? Is that tell me what the thinking is behind it's only going to be for 4 or 5 minutes. We understand that, but it's pretty symbolic, I reckon. What would have been the thought process?
I think there was a change in plans from what they'd started going into the game. So it looked like they tried to line it up so that Grundy and Nat Nui would go head-to-head against each other, and Cameron and Allen would go head-to-head against each other. And you can do that with West Coast because they play pretty set rotation patterns. But the way the game's unfolding, I think I've got a feeling Grundy's carrying some sort of injury. He just doesn't quite look like himself out there. And Cameron was competing well enough in there that I think Bucks basically just said, you know what, Cameron's going to be better off following up for the first couple of minutes, and then Grundy will come on after 3 or 4 minutes and get the back end of Nick Nat's stint and maybe can get off Nick at that stage. So it was a great in-game tweak that they've made.
Looking forward, Rob, to the Pies and the Cats. Have you had a bit of a look at that? Which way do you see that one playing out?
I think we've all got the temptation to go with the teams that have won on the weekend and go against the teams that have lost on the weekend when it comes to semi-final weekend. The commentary around Geelong's loss has been really interesting. I know Scotty reacted to it a little bit by calling it lazy journalism to question their finals record. It's not lazy journalism. It's well within everyone's right to question their finals record, but this game probably wasn't the one to question. They were right in this. Same number of inside 50s. Hawkins really dominated inside forward 50. He just didn't kick straight. So last time against Port, he took 9 forward 50 marks. This time he took 6. He kicked 0-5 and had one that didn't score. You know, Port did a good job forcing him wide, but he still got plenty of opportunities. Geelong's one contested possession across the course of the night. They got their kick mark game going a little bit, probably not to the same extent they normally do, but still pretty good. I think Geelong are the likely one to go on and face the Lions in a prelim final.
Did Port do something, Rob, that will other teams can try and replicate against that Geelong defence? When they seem to put real speed into their into their entries and attack the footy inside forward 50, and it became a really frantic contest in there. Geelong did feel, I don't know whether there's a measurement for this, but they did feel and look a bit flat-footed, a bit slower than their opposition. Is that an observation that you share or not?
Yeah, it is. And I think the two things going into your forward 50 against Geelong is you need speed, so you want your players resetting from up the ground quickly, and you want ground balls in your forward 50 because if you lob the ball in high, all the Geelong defenders are 190 plus. They're going to take intercept marks, all day. So I thought that's what Port got. And some of the sort of sacrificial acts they got inside their forward 50, and particularly the Butters one, late in the game that set up a goal, really stood out on the night. So they capitalised in their forward half. They kicked a few goals out of centre bounce, which Geelong will feel was something that they could probably handle better next time. But yeah, Port got the ball at ground level inside their forward 50, and it looked really dangerous.
Rob, the Brisbane Lions are into a preliminary final. How significant a step was it for them to get over Richmond at home on such a big stage?
It was enormous. This is like, I call it like an 18th birthday party. This is the day that the Lions grew up, really, after the two finals that they lost last year. To come out and win a final against the best, so I feel the best team in the competition still. Richmond, I know they've had their ups and downs this year and some on-field and some off-field dramas, but I think they're still the team to beat. They've got the runs on the board. And you could just feel the Lions players growing throughout the night, couldn't you?
Yeah.
The best thing I felt that happened for them was they got challenged again in the last quarter, so it wasn't easy for them. Richmond really didn't give them an inch, made them fight it out right to the end, and they had to really be composed in that last 10 minutes and finish off the game properly. So outstanding for the Lions, and across the board with what they've done over the last few years, David Noble, Chris Fagan, Danny Daly, all those guys, just outstanding.
What's the one thing, there's more than one at the end of every season, but give me one thing the Dogs need to address to take what they've generated in 2020 and build on it for the next year or two, Rob?
Hard to narrow it down to one, unfortunately.
We'll take one or two. Give us a few if you need to.
I'll give you a couple. Look, I personally feel that the Dogs are one of the more disappointing teams this year. I thought they were a top 4 team. And unfortunately, the record over the time that Bevo's been coach is that they generally finish sort of 7th to 10th each year, and done a preview for the SEN, or a review, sorry, for the SEN website. It included a way too early prediction for 2021. And I've picked them to finish 7th to 10th again because that's what they keep giving us year in, year out. I think their forward system needs a real overhaul. So it's a tough forward line to play in. It is a bit haphazard how the ball gets delivered inside 50. And what we've seen, particularly from their talls in the forward 50, and this year Bruce coming into the club, Aaron Norton, but even going through Josh Shackey coming in and Tom Boyd, it's been difficult for key forwards to find their place in the Bulldogs system. So it can't just be the individuals. It has to be the method that the ball's moving forward. So I think that's one area to look at. The other one I know you guys have spoken about a little bit earlier in the show is what they do to support Tim English, because it's a big ask for a 22, 23-year-old ruckman to come up week in, week out, and there are some high-quality ruckmen in the comp right now. When you talk about Nick Nat, Goldstein, Gawn, Grundy, you can get these guys week in, week out, and it takes its toll over the course of the season.
Are you still your levels of belief, confidence, whatever the right phrase is, but in Josh Shackey, Rob, is there still an AFL future and career ahead of this young fella?
We just haven't seen enough of him, have we, at the level in the last 2 years? The thing I fear for him a little bit going forward is that if they do bring in an experienced ruck to help English out, English will play more as a key forward ruck for the next year or two to help his development. You've got Jamara Ugle-Hagan coming in, who's obviously got incredibly high raps on him, will start as a third forward and hopefully develop into a key for him. There may not be a spot for him necessarily there when you factor in Aaron Norton as well. So barring injuries or anything like that, it might be a difficult spot for him to break into going forward.
Have you thought about what St Kilda do? So, and I'll get, in fact, let's stop there. Ben Long, Bob, you go first. Has he got any chance at the tribunal?
He's got a chance, but it's pretty slim. I just don't know what the argument is when you have the option to tackle and you bump and you get him in the head. It's a tough one to wriggle out of.
Rob?
Tough one to get out of, but I think he certainly does have a chance, but probably unlikely.
So let's assume that your gut feel is right, that he isn't there, and that alongside Ryder and Carlisle means that there's going to be 3 pretty significant outs for St Kilda going into the game against Richmond. Have you thought about who comes in?
Well, look, firstly, we have to acknowledge it's such an enormous loss to the way that they played on the weekend. They take 21 contested marks on the day, and Ryder and Carlisle take 6 of them. Factor in another 4 to Jaron Geary, who took them in his role on Caleb Daniel, 4, which is more than he's taken in any other game in his career. So immediately sort of half their contested marks are out the door, and that's their big strength in the game against the Bulldogs. So it's a big loss for them. In terms of who they can bring in, I think they've got some depth in that sort of third tall type area in defence, but at the same time, you're coming up against Tom Lynch now coming back into the side, and I think that's going to create a lot of problems for them. And the 2 ruck thing has worked outstandingly well, and potentially was an area that they could expose against Richmond, who play the one ruck. So
such a point of difference for them, isn't it, the double ruck?
It really is, and when you come up against a side like Richmond, as I said before, probably still, I think, in the best 1 or 2 sides in it, you need that point of difference desperately. So it's going to now, the flow-on effect is that it's a big ask for Max King, who was fantastic in his first final, but he now will go more one out as a key forward. He won't have Marshall down there next to him necessarily, so he's going to be required in the ruck. So it's going to take some creative coaching, I think, from Rats this week.
So St Kilda hopeful Josh Battle returns. There's Dylan Roberton, who's in the mix. Jonathan Marsh has played some serviceable footy for them when he's had to. Nick Hind has been in and out of. So they've got some blokes who are there or thereabouts, but it feels like the net loss.
Big assignment, isn't it?
It's massive. Yeah. Hey, just before I let you go, Rob, Richmond looked a bit ragged at times the other night. They looked like discipline issues. The 50s, it's easy to point at those, but they did look like they gave away, Cochin high and, Pickett gave away just at times they couldn't park just that split-second desire to whack a bloke high or drag a guy to ground or whatever. Is that an easy tidy-up? Are you still bullish that they can sort of get it back on track?
I am bullish that they can get it back on track. I think there's 2 sides to it. One is that when you become a really great side, you do you do start to just bully teams into submission.
Yeah.
And they face a team that refuse to be bullied. Now, when you try and bully a team, sometimes that aggression can go over the top and lead to free kicks. But the one thing that stood out for me, and they're two tiny things from the start of the game, but one was Damien Hardwick forgetting to go out to the anthem. And two was the handball that Daniel Rich got in the first couple of minutes to kick the first goal, where if you're really switched on, you know that you've got to cover Daniel Rich for the handoff 55 metres out. He has one or two of those every week. So it spoke to me that Richmond were just at 2 or 3% off, and I expect you'll see the complete opposite this week against the Saints. They will be red hot for the first couple of minutes, because when we talk about discipline, it's not just giving away 50, it's also discipline to cover off a Daniel Rich behind the ball and not allow an easy shot on goal like that. So I think we'll see a big change in that this week.
So we're down to 6. Who have you got leading the pack at the moment? If you can only pick one, who are you picking?
Port Adelaide, I think, in the box seat, although if Richmond or St Kilda, if Richmond gets through and we play a Port Adelaide-Richmond prelim final, that will be an absolute belter. And whoever gets through the other side will hope that those two teams kick the absolute suitcase out of each other in that prelim, because that could be an absolute classic. So Port Adelaide, for me, just with a slight edge ahead of the Lions.
Read Rob Stuff, sen.com.au. We'll speak to you next Monday, mate. We'll have a chat about the bits and pieces that you've identified in the fallout to semi-final weekend. Thanks for being part of it again today.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you then.
All the best, Rob Harding. So St Kilda's going to argue low impact as opposed to medium. So that takes it from 2 down to 1 to a $1,500 fine.
I hope he gets off.
Yeah. There's the other 1300 736 736 if you want to weigh into that or anything. The other argument is the minute you bump and hit a bloke in the head, it's automatic a week, and then you can argue the merits of how much more it should be. If you want to be fair dinkum, if we're going to be fair dinkum about this in the game, the minute you choose to bump, and this is not a novel thought, the minute you choose to bump, you make contact with the head, you're missing a week. Then it's just...
Otherwise, we asked Jack McRae, what was the contact like? It wasn't that bad.
Well, that's right.
Just give him a fine.
That's right. The starting point is a week, and then we work up from there. And you can argue your case if you think you've been a bit stiff, but the starting point is 1 week. End of story.
Judge Rowe.
1300 736 736. Hey, odds update for Sportsbet. Combine your favourite marks and one bet for bigger odds. Same race multi. Tigers $1.34, Saints $3.18, Cats $1.75, Collingwood $1.08, Brisbane $3.40 favourite, Port $4, Richmond $4.50, Geelong $9, Collingwood out to 12.
Essendon Havel and Great Wall, sticking together with all of Melbourne.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Auntie Ma on SEN.
The Soul is a book by former Western Bulldogs player Bob Who. Plus Murphy, which...
Yeah, hey Bob, how you going?
So you were just you were the subject of a question on the chase, and the woman answering the
subject of an answer.
Well, your name was the answer to the was the subject of the question. That's right.
She didn't know. Yeah.
I mean, that's like a complete Joe the Goose for that woman. That is a handball over the top. He may as well
It's almost as disappointing as I sent you a free copy of the same book. Haven't read it. Give it back. If you're not going to read it, I'd like to take it back off your hands and give it to some young
How would you
Bulldog
feel
supporter.
if I told you that it made its way to one of my cousins?
A re-gift. A re-gift. Gee whiz. Twist the blade.
And it hasn't, and I didn't, and I will read it before I give it away to someone else. So don't worry about any of that. Just an update before we get to a few more calls. Lanning is 81. No, she's not. That's an old score. That hasn't refreshed. Lanning is... Stand by, folks. 81 not out.
God,
She's 81.
Nothing is working today.
Oh, I think so.
Oh, God almighty.
I think something's happened on the computer screen. It's gone back a few runs. Anyway, Lanning's into her 80s. Sutherland's about 15 or 16 not out, and the Australians are well and truly on their way. That's a really gutsy, competitive effort by the New Zealanders today, setting up a cracking game 3 on Wednesday, Adam is in Montrose. Lines are open, by the way, between now and 6 o'clock. What's next for those who have gone through or gone out? One thing, what's next for them? 1300 736 736. Hi, Adam.
G'day, fellas. Thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I wanted to talk about Richmond. I think they're in trouble. I think the path they've got ahead of them now will mean they either won't make it to the grand final or they'll be finding it too hard to win if they get there. And I think if you look back through the year, there's probably a moment or two that it looked like they weren't quite switched on. Just for an example, when they were singing the song in the change rooms, I thought they probably showing a little bit too much, I don't know if you'd call it arrogance, but it just doesn't seem to me like it's going to be their year this year.
Yeah, well, Bob mentioned a long time ago that, was it smudge? You used the word smudge? There's a couple of smudges appearing. I think that was a word used. Yeah, it felt appropriate. They just weren't, were they?
They'd clocked football, and this year it hasn't. It's had some distractions and some challenges brought on by themselves. Their form had held, though. Now, I'm not yet prepared to say that those distractions have affected them on the field, because they still played pretty well the other night, but Brisbane were just too good. But if they can get it right, they can still win it.
Look, this St Kilda team, God love them, but with the 3 outs, if Long doesn't get a good result, Richmond should win this game comfortably. They should just win the game comfortably.
Yeah,
and then
they should.
We're back on track. Then they're back on track.
So I think there's still life in their season, but it was a significant loss on the weekend.
Steve's on the road. Hi, mate.
Boys, big loss. If they don't really spank St Kilda this weekend, then they're not switched on at all. My point for the phone call was the umpires were 18 to 11 or something by the end of the game. But you know what? Giving free kicks in the last quarter, when most of the time we had no chance of winning it, doesn't really cut it. They were getting free kicks when we'd just have a ball fumbled out of our hand in a tackle, and we almost had to do the tackle right down to a T before we got a free kick. And then on the 50 metres, we should have had 2 in a row, and McIntosh kick a goal without any pressure, like 5 metres out, but he didn't get that second 50. And they were just looked a little bit one-sided there until they knew that Brisbane couldn't lose it. Then they started evening it up a little bit, I thought, but maybe I'm just
Steve,
one night.
Yeah, no, we are. We do, don't we? I mean, most of us do. We're a bit too emotional when our team's playing. Oh, look, for what it's worth, mate, and I watched the game with both eyes wide open, and I honestly didn't. I thought Richmond gave away some silly free kicks through, just momentary lack of control. And they asked for a bit of trouble with a couple of 50s. And they got the trouble they were asking for.
And McIntosh probably deserved 50 metres.
Yeah, probably.
But it wasn't severe. You could, he was probably a little bit stiff, but it wasn't an absolute certainty.
I don't think it was the umpiring that cost you the game, Steve, for what it's worth, mate. But I know I got a lot of feedback from Richmond supporters on Friday night, and they suggested that the umpiring was very much against them. So that's a prevailing view amongst the Richmond faithful for sure. AK's in Brunswick before we get to the news. Fire away, mate.
Yeah, just a couple of calls, a couple of things, mate. The long bump on the weekend. I don't know where our game's going, boys. I'll be honest with you. Like, he got up straight after the bump, all right? And I think if you cleaned him up and he didn't get up, you can understand. But to get him in 1 week or 2 weeks, where is our game going? I think our game's it's a bit soft at the moment. People are going to be too scared to bump anymore or attack the ball anymore. I think our game's going backwards. That's one thing. And another one about Richmond, I can guarantee you with Lynch coming back in that side, it's going to straight that Richmond footy side to go all the way. without Lynch in that side, it put a lot of pressure on Rewald. What do you think, guys?
Firstly, do you really think the game's soft? Have you seen how brave players are and how fast they are at ground level and the hits? I just don't buy the theory that footy's gone soft, that players will still attack the ball and they'll still bump, but they just can't bump them in the head. That's the simple line.
Yep.
There's definitely something in the dual key forward. So having Tom Lynch back in, it's not just what Tom Lynch gives you. It's how it affects your opposition and the options you have going forward. And that's not the way it is for all players, but Tom Lynch is one of those. He goes back in and it's a completely different side and it upsets the way the opposition have to man you up.
Oh, yeah, they're an infinitely more difficult team when he's in the 22. There's no doubt about that. We'll get to the news. 7-Eleven Trisha Grant Coffee, just a buck. Your calls all the way through till 6. Backdraft number 11. Good luck settling on a 4 for this.
Oh, yeah.
Real hard work. We'll do that in the last half hour as well.
The Soul is a book by former Western Bulldogs player Bob Who. Murphy, which...
Disappointing.
Pass.
It's a lack of respect.
Well, it's disappointing.
It's, dare I say it, almost a little bit un-Australian. As a citizen of our great nation.
Well, how about
know
this?
Who you are.
You've got no intention of reading that book that I poured my heart into. So why don't
I will
you
read it.
send it to that young lady who
Now that I'm
decided to
very
go
good,
with Path?
now that I'm very good friends with you, I will read it.
Wow, we're
no, I think we're
Talk it up, Andy. Come on.
colleagues.
It's better than I think we've gone past
We
that.
shine it up for work, but we're colleagues.
Well, if you're a friend of mine, you would have asked me about just to give you a 5-minute skinny on how my fantasy league team knocked over the top team today. You would have asked me.
If that doesn't bore people witless, nothing will.
No, Derek Henry. Unbelievable performance by my team.
Man, Derek Henry, old Hank.
Well, yeah, because of the
Titans
coronavirus.
football, baby.
Yeah, well, their game was cancelled this week, so my
It's the only thing that could
premier
stop us.
running back up against
Only thing that could stop us.
Alvin Kamara, that mob. And I've got the Chocolates, unbeaten team. Meg Lanning, 97 not out. Australia are going to win this. Lanning, they've got 8 to get. Lanning's got 3 to get her 100. It'll be 100 number. Her conversion rate in one day, again, I haven't got the exact numbers in front of me, but in one-day international cricket, Meg Lanning has made 15 50s, and this is going to be her 14th 100. So when she gets to 50... 50% of the time she goes on to get 100. I think maths is a dangerous game for us to play. But I think that's right.
Still recovering from my earlier faux pas.
She is a magnificent player. I understand and will forever understand that there are a lot of people out there, dare I say blokes out there, who just will never rate women's sport for whatever the particular reason might be. And that's okay. You're completely entitled to your opinion, you truly are. But I will say this on that. You're missing out on something by not watching Meg Lanning bat. It is a thing of absolute beauty. Brendan's on the road. No, he's not. What am I talking about? He's up on the Gold Coast and wants to join in the conversation. Our lines are open, by the way, 1300 736 736. Giant Bicycles. Hello, Brendan.
G'day, Andy. G'day, Bob.
G'day, mate.
How are you, mate?
Good. I was at the game on the weekend, on Friday. And, a couple of things I noticed compared to... I've been to every game since we've been playing in Queensland. But body language. After half-time, they came out and they did just look a bit flat. They didn't look mentally all there, I wouldn't say, the Tigers. When we played West Coast and when we played Geelong, we were just switched on. You could see it and you could really tell the difference.
The other mob were in a hyper state, I reckon. They were, in terms of being switched on.
Yeah, well, that
Hipwood
game,
early. Even Hipwood early
game was another notch up from all of the other finals. I felt like
in terms of when you say notch up, just the general overall.
Yep.
Okay, because the Collingwood West Coast game had a fair bit.
That was that would be pretty close, but they were. It was those two, wasn't it? And then the other two were a slight rung below.
Boy, geez, that Collingwood. I mean, we should spend 30 minutes a day between now and whenever they play next, just sitting and reflecting on how good a win that was by Collingwood. That was just unbelievable.
In and amongst that win by Collingwood, which was extraordinary, the one-on-one battle of Liam Ryan and Braden Maynard.
Yeah, fantastic.
Isn't that just a small encapsulation of what we love about footy? Two blokes, they're just about the two best in the league in their position, put against each other, head-to-head, leave them be, and they both had their moments, but they were into it. It was personal. It was physical. They showed all their skills. I just found myself really zeroing in on those two. It was wonderful to watch.
Great point. So two things. One, at the end of the game, Liam Ryan goes straight to his social media platform, I don't know which one it was, and says, absolute respect for Braden Maynard. He's a terrific player. So puts it out there. The ball, showing the ball, the whole thing. That's part of the theatre of the whole thing. The fact that it was, you mention it, is what you're 100% right. This is what we want. We want more of that.
Yeah.
We want Darcy Moore on Jack Darling. We want the one-on-one battles. It is what footy is. That's what footy is partly about. Levi Greenwood on Tim Kelly. It was fantastic. Grundy up against Nat Nui. We had a bit of that. We don't get it during the home and away. We had 5 or 6 locked-in one-on-one battles in that game the other night, and the game was so much better for it.
It does. It makes it more enjoyable to watch, that's for sure.
God, he's a... Braden Maynard, I've said this a couple of... I've never got a player as wrong as I've got Braden Maynard. I thought Maynard... honestly...
there's a topic for another day.
Who's 2 years
the player
ago...
you got wrong?
I thought he was
the player you went, no, good.
I thought he was a meathead. Oh, yeah, you're all blowhard. Yeah, you're no good, mate. You turn the footy over. You just, you're half in your puff, but you can't blow anything down. I have got him so wrong. He is an absolute... How competitive is that bloke?
Yeah.
And he's a better... He actually still makes a few blues every now and again. But, geez, every side in the competition had had Braden Maynard in a back pocket or half back flank.
He's old Collingwood too.
He
could have played for the Pies in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And he's there at the Lexus Centre now, but he would have been there at Victoria Park. He's an old Collingwood player.
It's a very, very good call. Jim's in Elwood, has jumped on the Giant Bikes open line. Hello, Jim.
How are you, gentlemen?
Good, thank you.
Mate.
Yeah, very happy with the win and very happy with Johnny Nobles getting up after having his Gregory Peck nearly ripped off in half in that pocket.
Blue collar, mate. Your blue collar boys were magnificent the other night.
He was good. He was tough and he looked like he could be sunburnt by the moon, poor Johnny. But that goal he kicked for a small man, it showed a lot.
Yeah, it did.
Really proud of the boy and Braden Maynard, the bull, tough.
Mate, they gave you everything they had to give that mob the other night, and that's why the rest of us, they make us, bloody love hating them, but Jesus, times you have to just dip your lid and, barrack for them the other night. Like, you just couldn't help yourself. It's just fantastic.
A win full of heart, wasn't it?
Yeah, Anthony's in St Kilda. G'day, mate.
How are you guys? Yeah, look, I've been listening to the conversation on all afternoon, and you described it wonderfully there. I think that fellow just said it all, but he sounds like an old-time Collingwood supporter like me. I've been following for 60 years, and I love Collingwood, through thick and thin. They're a hamburger with a lot. They're a blue-collar club, but I like what you said earlier, Bob, earlier on today, the guy that they all played their part, the boys. Brody Grundy's a bit down on last year's form, but he played it out and played his guts out for the jumper, and he wasn't out. I don't think Nick had a little bit the better of him, but I think that sort of pretty well broke even on the night, to tell the truth. But
Grundy, anyway, Anthony, Grundy's going to sleep for a week after this season. The amount of work he's done, he won't go on it. There'll be no end of season trips. He will just sleep for a week, and he'll get up to go to the loo, and then he'll go back to bed and go back to sleep. That's what he'll do for a week.
He does a whole lot of work, doesn't he?
Oh, hasn't he? What? Landing 101 not out. Australia win against the New Zealanders 2-0 up. They reclaim, they hang on to the Rose Bowl. Game 3 on Wednesday. What a player. What a team.
Essendon, Havel and Great Wall. Open again after stage 4.
Drive with Bob Murphy and Andy Maher on SEN.
What do you got off the tempers for me, Robert Murphy?
Awesome. Some spicy texts coming through, Andy. Bit of vinegar in them on a Monday afternoon. You ready for this? This is from Momo. Hey, Andy. Trader barracking for Collingwood. Noted. This one from I assume a Tiger supporter. Maynard wouldn't get a game in Richmond's back line.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, he would, mate.
What about this
he
one?
Would.
This is from
He just
Mark
would,
in
mate,
Essendon.
so shut up and don't ever send that.
Mark in Essendon is often the voice of reason on this show. Loved how Maynard and Ryan interacted after the game. The battle was awesome. The taunting brilliant and capped off by the arms around each other afterwards. Love it.
Perfect.
From Mark. And then this one, no name attached. And I love everything about it. Even the autocorrect that's gone awry. Stop making exercise, Richmond flogs. I think they mean excuses.
Andrew's up on the go.
It auto-corrected to exercise, but I know.
Andrew, we're with you 100% of the way. Andy's on the Gold Coast before we finish the show with our backdraft number 11. Hello, Andrew.
G'day, guys. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I was just thinking with the Tigers, you think it's affecting them not being back in Melbourne, especially now when their VFL team is up for the hunt as well, not having all the hype and excitement around the club, especially
Probably.
stuck in the hub with the bye before the finals.
Be affecting everybody though, Andrew. So they're all in the same boat, aren't they? Most of them.
Well,
they're
Brisbane aren't. Brisbane
No.
aren't in the same boat.
No, but
And that's who they just played, Andy. So
well, that's yeah. So if you say is it affecting Richmond in a
Silly,
head-to-head against Brisbane? Yeah, well it is. But all the other clubs have had to deal with it as well. So yes, it would be. No doubt it would be affecting them. Yes, not Brisbane though. Nor Port Adelaide for the time being.
Who they played.
Or West Coast on the weekend. Look what happened to them. Yeah. And now enjoy your 14 days. That'll be fun. You know what we should do? Send over. There should be 22 undercover agents sent to contact trace the 22 West Coast Eagles players. Because I guarantee you, there'll be very friendly media covering them. It's only 7 days now they have to do. That's right. Anyway.
I've got a question for you, Andy.
Yeah, go on.
Have you dropped off backdraft?
No, I'm in love with it, and here it is. So get to number 11. I love backdraft. It's one of my favourite things we've ever done.
Oh, I love it too. I just feel like you've sort of waned.
No, we've just had a lot of. No, we've been busy the last couple of days.
Well, let's get back on.
Right, number 11. Who have you got? Who are your lot? Who have you got? Who's your 4?
I don't feel good about it.
All right, come on.
I've left out a couple of the all-time greats.
Go on.
Brad Johnson.
Tick.
Steel side bottom.
Don't tell me you're going to do something stupid. Yep, go on. Yep, tick.
Lenny Hayes.
Yeah, good. Tick.
Toby Green.
Well, see, you've gone and let yourself down here.
No,
badly.
because I'm not chained to this football CV that you seem so
No.
loyal to. Oh, they did this and they have this one, this medal. And
So you've left out Sean Higgins. You've left out Tom Lynch.
Yeah.
And you left out a bloke who should be in there.
Well, I don't feel good about
Darren Glass should be in your.
Yeah,
Darren Glass should be in the
feel good
format.
I don't feel good about it.
For a bloke who reckons you have
Well,
this. No,
you just underrate some players.
No,
Toby
I don't.
Green is a half-forward flanker. He's one of the great half-forward flankers in the game.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, no, well, yeah, he is. And Darren Glass has
a
been
great player, but I've just gone with a different 4 to you, old Vinegar Lips.
No, well, I had it down. We had the same 3: Tick Johnson, Tick Hayes, Tick Sidebottom. But I've got Glass in instead of Green, and I imagine you'll be
cop that, Sean Higgins.
I think you'll be getting a message from Cement Head or whatever his nickname, Mega Head. Or he'll be getting in touch with you, Sean Higgins, former teammate of yours. I wanted Bo Waters to be in there, but I couldn't find.
It was a good list.
It's a very strong number 11.
Yeah, Dom Sheed is in there as well.
Troy Menzel, Wayne Malira,
Saddington,
Sam Flanders, Andre Everett. Who?
Andreas
Everett. One of the Cockatoo Collins is in there.
Yeah.
David Palm. Some good players.
Who do you think will win this? Who do you think will... I mean, you think it'll be Hayes, Johnson?
Lenny will win it.
Jeez, a good player,
Brad Johnson was
Johnson.
yeah, he's a very good player, Brad
I
Johnson.
saw him kick 8 goals on Matty Scarlett one day. It was like having front row seats to Sinatra. It was that good. 8. He kicked 8.
So we'll put
He's
Green.
5'11".
He was a champion, mate. We'll put Green and Glass out to the wild card for the right to get into the final 4. We'll have that for you tomorrow, folks.